Another thing you'll often find is developers will use an ID of name in this case, and they'll set the name attribute, not to be confused. The fact that the value is name has no effect on the attribute name. If we decided we wanted to change this to your name, that would work too, so don't let that confuse you. When you're working with a server-side language, they will often want to reference an input's value according to its name, or if you're working with JavaScript, sometimes you'll use it this way as well. So what you'll find is many developers will go ahead and set an ID attribute and a name attribute equal to the exact same value. That way, you're all set to go, no harm done. So now let's provide an option to enter some feedback. So we don't use an input for that because this isn't going to be long enough. We need a full area to write in. In that case, we use a text area element. And this is a little different. Notice here our inputs we self-close, but a text area is like a label or a div. So we need to close it like so. And the reason we do this is because optionally you can add a default value. So if I reload the page, you'll see that we've added a text area and it's filled with the value that we placed between the tags. In this case, we're going to leave it blank. So I'll do it like so. Once again though, we have no idea what this text area is looking like. And by the way, we're going to make this look a lot nicer, so don't worry if it looks a little crazy right now. I'm going to come back, and this time I'm going to add another label, and this is going to be for, and we'll say comments. Now, in order to connect it, I have to remember to add a ID of comments as well as a name of comments. And lastly, I will set the label's value to your comments. Reload the page. And now we've provided a label for that one as well, and I can click on it. Now, let's begin styling it to make it look a lot better. One thing that you will often see is developers will use a p tag to separate each set of label and input. Even though I must admit that I've done this myself as well, I don't think it's a good practice, but let's go ahead and see what it provides us. We'll do this one, and we'll wrap the input as well. If I reload the page, you can see those are now on their own line. So they do this because browsers natively provide a little bit of spacing or margin between each paragraph. So it's an easy way to put your content on their own line and give a little bit of padding between each input. However, you have to think to yourself, p tag references a paragraph. Now, does that have anything to do with a label and an input as children? Maybe so, maybe not. My instinct is no. So what you can think of though is this is simply a list of inputs or a list of information that the user needs to fill out. So once again, there's that keyword list. Why don't we try using an unordered list to wrap this? And I will repurpose this, indent it to make it look nice and neat. And I'll do the same thing here, like so. And I should make sure I close out my unordered list as well. Now if I load the page, it's going to look similar, but a couple differences. One, we certainly don't want those bullets, so let's get rid of that immediately. Form, list item, list style, get rid of the bullets. Next, we need a little bit of breathing room because we've gotten rid of those paragraph tags that have the margin by default. That's okay. We'll add it in right now, and we'll say margin bottom, 20 pixels. Reload. And that's looking a lot better now. Next, it's sometimes cleaner to have your label on its own line. So let's do that. And we can do that by specifying that the label, rather than its default display of inline, it should be set to block. So it will take up the entire width that's available. Reload, and now you'll see, there we go. Looks a lot better. Notice how this is a little odd. We have this input that's all the way to the left. And if we come back, we can see the reason is we forgot to place this within our list. So let's do it right now. And I will just clean this up and get rid of the p tag. Reload, and now that's been pushed over. But that does beg the question, what is this spacing coming from? And if you remember from a previous lesson, browsers will apply some default padding left to all unordered lists unless we override that. You can verify this by clicking on the UL, and right here you'll see WebKit padding start. And this is, for all intents and purposes, identical to padding left. It's how the browser does it. WebKit refers to the engine that powers browsers like Chrome and Safari. Now we can override this by explicitly stating that the padding left should be 0. And notice that that pushes all the way back. So let's do that now. Form UL, padding left is 0. Notice I'm prefixing form because maybe within a blog posting, for example, we do want a little bit of padding for our UL. However, when it's in a form, we certainly don't. So I'm going to keep it like so. And if I reload, that's looking a lot better. So